Bob's never done action his entire life.
I started as a comedy writer in this business.
When you're dealing with an actor like Bob, we wanted to flip it on its head and blow it out.
What are you still doing here, old man?
I'm gonna fuck you up. Sorry about the mess.
You know, the thing that makes an action movie special is letting your actor do as much action as they feel comfortable and we feel comfortable letting them do.
When we presented that task to Bob and say, that's how we make it unique, that's how we make it fresh, Bob took the challenge.
I knew that I had to go to a whole nother level if I wanted to actually do the fighting and not get hurt.
Go.
Very good, excellent. Kelly McCormick and David Leitch are connected to a group of stunt people here called 8711. And they had one of those people, Daniel Bernhardt.
I don't know what it was. I just felt like they would fall in love with one another, and they kind of did.
He knew that if he wants to play this character, he has to pay the price.
To me, the fun of doing this is to learn that new set of skills.
We started in November 2017. I would stretch with him, and then we would just do our basic martial arts training. He would learn how to punch, he would learn how to kick, he would learn how to throw, because we wanted his style just to kind of a little bit of everything.
I went to 8711. What I loved about what I saw is that this was not easy for him. Not yet. But he was going at it. He was still persevering. He'd get up, he'd go again, and one more time, let's do it again. And he'd collapse, he'd go up, he'd get punched, punch, and again.
I wanted to get there and do that and stress myself, and I wanted to prove myself to these pros around me.
So we trained together for a couple of weeks, then he went to do another season of Better Call Saul. On the weekends when he came back, we got together again and started training more and more. Once the movie was greenlit, I would fly to Albuquerque. I would train with him in the morning from like 9 to 12, take lunch, take a nap, come back from 4 to 7, and he would not quit.
But from the first day I got on set, Bob rehearsed.
We train every day on set. So even when he works, he still trains for about an hour and a half. Then we go to set, and he does all of his scenes, and we have an hour lunch break. Now Bob Odenkirk. Bob does a 20-minute lunch break, and we go train.
Bob really absorbed in his training for the action.
Bob loves this stuff. Bob's just so ready to do anything and everything.
Tank! No, we should just move on. That was fucking great. Awesome. That was great.
I have a lot of respect for Bob because I've seen what he's been going through. He started from zero, and now he can throw punches, he can kick, he can do rolls. And a lot of people come up to me and they say, "Oh, Daniel, you did a great job with Bob." I said, you know, honestly, it's not really me, it's him.
From the get-go, I knew that this was something that would be really challenging for me personally, and I wanted to commit completely and go all the way into furious rage. Utterly unapologetic rage. I gave it my all. I really did. What I wanted to do was this big, grand, unapologetic, unironic action film that would play in China and Africa and Russia and all around the world.
This is a bit of a male fantasy, the sort of suburban dad who can actually be a badass, because most suburban dads are not badasses, but a lot of them want to protect their family and do all these good things.
It's a movie full of wish fulfillment. We have a love story. We have this crazy action set pieces, shock moments. And it makes you want to go again on this ride. What the hell are you?
Well, there are a couple different threads that lead their way into weaving the backdrop of the story of Nobody. I had a couple break-ins in my house, and they've been very disturbing to my family, so I know what it feels like to play that guy in that moment. The difference with Hutch is he could do something. He's been trained to fight, whereas in my case, I'm not.
When the police were cleaning everything up, the policeman said to Bob, "You did the right thing."
You know, if that was my family?
It's not what I would have done. You did the right thing.
And it left me with a lot of thoughts about violence, about guns, about frustration, about protecting your family. And I thought it'd be a spark to make an action movie and a bit of fantasy role playing. I pitched to some writers, and the great writer Derek Kolstad, who wrote John Wick, took this nugget of an idea and then just blew it up into grandiose violence and made it into a movie.
There was something about that it really came from Bob and Bob's experiences. I just fell for the idea.
We were sort of off to the races, and the one piece that we really needed was the director. Bob was looking for this movie to feel unlike anything that Bob had ever done before. We put a lot of director ideas in front of Bob, and then we finally gave him a copy of Ilya's movie, Hardcore, and Bob got really excited.
Ilya Naishuller is from Russia, and he made a Hardcore Henry that he made for nothing.
After Hardcore, as I told my agent, I said it'd be great to have a thriller or action thriller with a star that has not done this before. Yeah, it'd be great to have 8711 do the stunts. And the actor, if he's got more of a comedic background, that'll be exciting. And I get the script in 2018, and the email said, ask and you shall receive, because it's Bob Odenkirk and an action thriller with stunts by 8711. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty convenient, if I may say so.
We're thrilled to have Ilya, who's a funny, interesting guy. And he just made it sing. He loves action just the way Derek Kolstad does. Those two guys together is just like an encyclopedia of action movies for the last 100 years.
Well, I arrived in Winnipeg and I put up all my storyboards all over the office. David looked through them all and we sat down talking, and he was like, this is great. And I felt so excited. You know, David Leitch telling this is great. I really appreciated it.
Gun down. Oh shit, gun back up, fire, fire, fire.
He's been really fun to work with and collaborate with because he's really open to the team having the best ideas and aggregating the good ones for his own vision. And I think that takes a lot for a director to do, but good directors do it naturally.
I get the chance to be like, I see it like this, and show references, and I can back up all these choices, and you have a great team who latch onto that and really help to elevate the director's ideas. And you don't have to listen to everybody, but you can hear them out, and you pick the best things from everybody.
And he's this, and he wipes out.
No, then he looks up and wipes the thing.
Wipes the 4 and the 1.
How do you do this? Oh, that's funny. That's fucking
The 4 and the 1, so it becomes
Start right away the 4 and 0.
And it's great when you can be like, oh, Mr. Leitch, thank you. This will be in the movie. What I really enjoy about the script, it does something that I see quite rarely, which is the main source of conflict doesn't stem from exterior forces, you know, like the John Wick, they stole my dog, and now I gotta kill them all. I don't want to go back to a life of violence, but now I have to. They forced me to it. Here, Bob's character, Hutch, he really, really, really wants to go back. I realized that it really is a story about addiction, and everything that happens in the film is due to him trying to satiate this need for violence.
To have a hit of it is a rush, and I think Bob portrays it really well.
It tested me making this movie. It was obviously physically, but that's not the biggest test. The lack of irony that I wanted to employ here was hard for me. To play someone feeling something heightened and conceptualized, that's hard for me to do without making a wisecrack or laughing. But I wanted to do it, and I did it, and I think I can pull that shit off, and I think it's kind of fun.
You point the camera at Bob, and you see that there's gears turning. Every single time we shot, a little bit of Bob goes a long way. You don't need to see him 15 seconds on the bus and he's sitting there moping. You get 2 seconds, and you're sold immediately.
Yeah, been a hell of a day. What if the past isn't dead? What if it isn't even past? We haven't embraced in far too long.
It's probably my favorite scene in the movie. Surprising. In an action film, my favorite scene is with a husband and wife and talk. It's just so honest.
I miss you.
Connie brought this thing where it became much more real.
We were filming the scene, and it wasn't even scripted, but I was just so moved by these two people finally opening up to each other, finally talking about what's happening here.
Remember who we used to be?
It's the biggest gift he could have given her, is just that truth.
I do.
And it becomes like a really tender and very beautiful moment.
It feels like such a bridge to them coming back together, and I literally got chills and a small little tear as we were filming that.
And that would not work without having Connie Nielsen play her, so I'd say perfectly.
The name of the game with this movie is doing what is unexpected. That's the whole point of the film. Bob as an action star is unexpected. And so for us, the question was, what are the unexpected casting choices that we can put around him that can still deliver on the promise of insane action?
We needed somebody who had a wild hair in them, a feeling of like, that guy's crazy, he could do crazy shit. But oh my God, nobody like Chris Lloyd fills that bill. Nobody brings that sense of chaos and mayhem that might break out, as well as a twinkle in his eye, like a real delight in craziness happening around him.
It took me a while to get into it and to understand David, putting all the pieces together. And eventually I began to see the character, and I love it.
What a hidden treasure that hasn't really been around in cinema and television that much lately. And to see the pizzazz that he brings and the depth and soulfulness, I was just really blown away by him.
I think my favorite thing we did with him was when he and Bob are sitting watching a Western, and it's just a static shot, and he's like, "You okay?" Bob's like, "Yeah, I'm okay." He's like, "You don't look okay." They're just two people talking, and Bob's got a lot in his mind. Kind of feels like cheating for a director, because you don't really need to direct stuff like that. If you have the right cast and the right script and the right DP lights it, I mean, my job is, on that particular moment, was action. And cut, I think we got it. And that's it.
Watching Robert work, getting to know him, I really feel we're a good match, father-son. It's right.
The backstory that I have for these guys is that David, the father, was best friends with Harry's dad. And when Harry's dad got killed in a mission, Harry became part of the family and we were raised as brothers.
70% of the screen time is via a radio or a telephone, so it's voice only. To me, it was important to get an actor who is sort of the embodiment of cool, who is different to what the character of Hutch is. Hopefully you recognize him with the voice, that he has the special, unique voice. And to have that moment where he shows up, you see RZA, you're like, holy shit, is that RZA? The movie was doing good, but now it's even better.
Awesome guy, great actor, great action actor.
When I came to this film, I came to bring my energy and to bring my action persona. It was everything I expected and more.
RZA added, as he always does, a certain swagger to a role and an authenticity. His affinity for action movies is pretty astounding. Obviously, his work, you can tell he loves martial arts cinema. For him to be here and doing fight scenes and knocking around the guys, I think he had as much fun as we did.
I think this team, Bob Odenkirk, Christopher Lloyd, the RZA, it's an unlikely team of guys we put together in an action film. People always wonder, who was the first guy who put cheese and pickles on that burger? Didn't sound like a great idea in the beginning probably, but what a combination.
There was a moment where we were debating on whether we should make the bad guys Russians because of other movies having done that so much.
The original draft, they were South Korean. The idea to make a Russian came from Derek. As much as I love Korean movies, I don't know anything real about the culture. When we see the Russians being the bad guys, we are only unhappy with it when it's done badly. And even then we forgive. The biggest thing I asked for, so guys, the Russians, when they talk to each other, they're gonna be talking in Russian with subtitles. We'll shorten the scenes, because they know people are not paying to read a book, I get it. But they're gonna be talking Russian to each other because there's no way Russian gangsters, immigrants in America between each other would be talking in English. It doesn't make any sense. And then I said, let's get Russians to play the Russians.
Ilya, being Russian himself, really wanted to break that stereotype in Hollywood.
Incredible luck that Winnipeg has a big Russian community. Every Russian on the screen is played by a Russian, except for Pavel the Black Russian, who's played by Aray Mingesha from Toronto. I always understood Julian needed to be a strong villain. He needed to be an interesting actor. He didn't need to be physically imposing. He needed to be something that Bob can really go against.
At some point it was like, you know, there's this one guy and he is Russian and he is phenomenal. He's considered the Anthony Hopkins of Russia.
Мне позвонил Илья Найшулер, которого я знаю по его картинам и клипам, и сказал, что это будет крутое кино. И я тут же согласился.
I called Alexei without talking to anybody. I said, Alexei, here's 3 scenes. Shoot this one in English, shoot this one in Russian, self-tape it, and do a stupid dance. And he was sitting on his porch, his son was recording him. His English is not bad, but it's not great. And he did the scene in close-up, and he did the silliest dance.
We get the video, and it's like, oh my God, like there's nobody else. It doesn't even compare.
It was something so intense and so haunting and menacing without him ever having to raise his voice. He feels absolutely terrified terrifying, and that's what really excited us.
Илья позвонил и сказал, что, в общем, ты понимаешь, что это плохой русский, и надо сделать его просто максимально интересным. Такая задача у нас стояла, при том, что объем роли небольшой. Надеюсь, что у нас что-то получилось.
So you got sued, Mr. Mansell, and your family will pay the price.
This stuff was fun to watch, and I've enjoyed watching every cut of this movie. This is one of those movies that just like, oh, I know what's coming next. I can't wait for the next 10 minutes. It's gonna be great.
Bob finally saw the finished version, and I'm so glad to say that they're excited and it lives up to the expectations of all the work that was put in. There was not a single person involved in this movie that I had to deal with that I did not enjoy working with.
But I like the look. Making a movie is an organic process, and we have such a talented pool of people that there are just some really special things that have happened just in the moment. Having a team as talented as we have, it's such a value add to a movie like this. You can really elevate it because we have good people.
Cast from the very top all the way to the smaller parts. And same thing with all the heads of departments. It's been a ridiculously great ride.
I'll watch this. What? That's it? Thank you so much for I'll wash it up.
I wanted it to look really violent and make you question how much of a hero he is.
It's a pivotal part of the movie. It's the first time we see Hutch transform into his past and who he really is and demonstrate his skill set.
I knew all the critical beats that needed to happen, the level of violence, the level of humor. And I started talking to Gregor Mentor, who's very experienced at stunt choreography, and I loaded him with all my thoughts, some of the angles that I thought, some of the key critical moments.
When I read the script, the thing that came across to me was that Hutch's character is about to do something he hasn't done in a long time. He's happy about it. He's finding himself. And so how do we ramp it and escalate it? And then how do we take those fun things and how do we integrate it along that ride? So one of the first things I did is I went on a couple bus rides. I was taking notes about things I saw that were a part of the bus, what people were carrying on the bus, what people were doing on the bus. For the most part, you've seen every punch, you've seen every kick. It's more about how we take something and involve it in the fight so that it makes it fun, emotional, memorable. It's all about the moments. So you'll see the gag with the purse, the stop sign, just fun moments because you want to take the people on a ride.
The first punch, Kirk Jenkins, the fantastic stuntman, just right in the kisser. Bob smacks the metal wall and off we go.
That's where Bob finally gets to show people what he's been training for.
It was very important for me. I said to Greg, he is not Captain America. He can be hyper aggressive and hyper successful in his aggression in the second part of the bus, but we need to make sure that he takes hits. And I'm so thankful that Bob was open to this thing where, yes, he's a movie star, he's got to be a badass, but we're going to ground it in the sense that just damage is not going to be bouncing off from him. He's going to feel it. When he gets knocked down, there's a pause, the breathing moment, where he puts on the watch onto his fist to use that as a knuckle duster, and he pulls out the knife. He looks vulnerable. He looks much like a dude his age in good shape will look if he's got to pull a knife out of him. It hurts.
Pushing the violence to where it's dangerous, but hopefully not going over the edge. I wanted to get there and do that and stress myself and my body, and I wanted to prove myself to these pros around me.
Is it bad? It's bad.
Fuck! I've spent so much time training with him, and for 2 years, I was the guy throwing punches at him, and he was ducking, and he was blocking, so he was very comfortable with me. So we tried to bring in as many people as possible that Bob is comfortable with, which makes it better for him, makes it better for us. It's easier to shoot, it goes faster.
The 4 guys who were in the fight, 2 of them are the fight coordinators. Daniel Bernhardt, who's trained Bob for years, and they're friends, and Kirk Jenkins, who also is a great performer and our fight coordinator and helped me come up with all the choreography and is incredible. Bob knows them as co-workers, but that night Bob was in character and he walked on that bus like he was entering the cage for his first fight, and he was pacing back and he was throwing these looks at them like he was going to kill them. I knew right then and there that this fight was going to be special because Bob looked like he actually wanted to beat the shit out of them.
I had to throw Kirk Jenkins against a wall, and I was surprised when they said you can do that harder, and I did it as hard as I could, and he was fine.
having him thrown out the window was very important to have the choice for the character to walk away. And because he gets back on the bus, because he is foolish, he didn't need to go back in, because the rest of the film, he could have just walked away and all right, I kicked some ass, I cut some guys, I smacked the bottle, that's enough. But he goes in because now it's serious. This is about him getting his fix. And that's why I remember pitching it saying, let him stumble back in, because now we're opening those doors, which are not easy to open. Now this is serious, and this is a choice to really get violent.
It was insane. The bus fight was an amazing experience because he was so prepared. He was so good. He would nail it. Every part we shot in 3 takes. It was unbelievable.
It's kind of a shame that it was a bus because as much as I love the setting, it was a little difficult. It's always a little difficult because, the space, etc. But had this been a ferry, it was another mode of transport, we would have had longer takes. And I think all the action aficionados know that best movies are done with the longest possible takes. With Bob could have done all these connections. He could have done 6, 7, 8 connections, no problem. He was that good because it mattered to him so much. He came in so over-prepared that all we had to do was make sure we follow our the storyboards and notes that I scribbled to myself. It was not easy, but the team made it, and Bob, it just made it a very smooth experience.
Sorry about the mess.
So in the second half of the movie, once the fuse is lit, Hutch puts his family in the safe place and they show up, then uses all of his talents to take all these guys out.
So the house fight, to me, right off the bat, it was like 2 things. Number one, you're in my house and it's personal. So that brings a whole different game of just absolute seriousness to it that Bob totally brought, which was incredible. The other thing was, unlike the bus fight where you saw him getting his groove back after 20 years of not fighting and getting that emotional energy out of him through the fight, he was a little more collected and back.
So around here, step, grab, open up.
Ready and action.
Nice.
So right out of the gate, he was sharp as a tack and knew exactly, he's like, I got it back. My rust has been shaken off and it's time to beat these guys up. And we just knew the way he played it, it was gonna be all business.
So when he stands up, he's coming.
It's at the end of it. I love it.
I had some thoughts on what the action needs to be. We talked with Greg and we designed the house to have the ability to really destroy shit and make it look great and logical and have the nice camera reports to make a great action scene.
Fire. He gets pushed. Boom. He gets here. Bang. Shoots Margarita. Boom. Dan hits him. As far as how we designed the house fight, you've seen again a lot of fights in a lot of houses over the time. So it's all about the emotion, the story, and the moments. Sometimes we create new ones, and sometimes we pay homage to ones that you've seen in other action movies before. Again, playing to Bob's strengths and making just great moments.
Start the drop, yeah.
Crank!
It was not like the bus fight, right? Because the bus fight, we're in a very closed place. It's one hand-to-hand combat linking into yet another, into another, into another. This one had pieces to it. That makes it a little bit easier to control every aspect of what you're doing.
There was a previs, and it was a much bigger previs. It was a lot crazier in terms of some of the home appliances that he used. So knives, which we already had, but not like this. The moment I really, really like is when he's running with a knife in the background, just stabbing the guy's face.
Again, you see our character is vicious, and it only goes up from there.
So Bob fires a gun for the first time. We want it to be very hectic and very driven, where it's just constantly moving. It's moving, it's moving. We're not in a single location. We're fighting throughout the house. The original plan, as you'll see this in the previs, he smacks the guy across the head twice. At the second time, it cracks into 1,000 pieces. So it splinters, it looks great. I came up with a thing on the spot where Bob cracks the baseball bat against his knee, and you just stab. Do a bit of a vampire Dracula kind of deal.
I'm not sure that was necessary. But I don't know. People come into your house with guns. They get what they came for.
We're pushing Bob towards this cool action star, and that to me is a cool action star moment.
That, and sometimes you just need some great moments of your lead actor being a badass.
The kettle was not supposed to be embedded in the guy's head, but I remember going like, let's embed the fucking kettle.
Again, we took it too far. That was part of the goal.
And that's when I have the idea that we should have a shot of the family just look up. The little comedic things little breathers. And A Kettle to the Head is not very comedic, but it's comedic to me.
It's just chaos. It's organized chaos. Bob goes and destroys.
Making that type of fight was really cool, as well as watching Bob really dive into that fight. Bob looks so sick in that fight. It's pretty freaking cool.
I always remember and really enjoy just slightly fresh takes on things we've seen. It's that we've seen this before. We've seen a kettle fight. We've seen hot water. We've seen boiled and the steam flying around. And even though Hutch is a grounded action man, we still need to make sure there are elements when you feel like, fuck yeah, he's a cool guy. I wanted to have that closed feeling of a person making decisions.
You killed my brother.
After all, you came to my house.
So it's not about who's got the better car. It's about who's got the better mind. But it really starts off with Bob leaving Julian with the option of quitting. So the next beat, as he drives past Julian, we always had the stare off, the slow motion dolly pass. Julian pulls out a gun and shoots him. Now what was key is Hutch's performance. I said, Bob, he just threw a snowball at you. You're so excited for a snowball fight. It's not a bullet. It's not something that could have killed you outright right there and then. It's a snowball. I love that smile of Bob. He's like, it's like a childish, mischievous, like, fuck yeah, we're doing it.
We were able to build a rear seat drive car, so we were able to get a lot of shots with Bob looking like he was driving the car, and we hid the pod driver in the actual car, in the back seat, dressed like a seat with some hidden cameras. We had cameras out of the front of the car, cameras in the back of the car, all while Bob looked like he was driving and in full control. It really allows for a filmmaker to do more with their actor in the vehicle, and doesn't limit their shots, and doesn't involve a lot of VFX. So that was a very cool moment as well.
Unfortunately, the situation happens where he ends up in the alley, gets crashed, and now he's in trouble. So we go from hero's in control to hero loses control. But he's in real danger.
He just missed you, right? Yeah. Right? If you want to give me like a little downshift, like you're about to take a corner, that'd be great.
I've always wanted to have this feeling of him like almost like a re-entry kind of shot as you're entering the atmosphere with all this shit flying everywhere. As he yanks the chair back, he's in that top-down shot with everything flying. And the original plan was to have the cars crash into each other. The cars were supposed to be stuck together, or we couldn't figure out a way to make it look real that they smashed and they're so stuck that he kind of uses the force of itself to toss it. Instead, now he shoots the guy and handbrakes out, letting the guy fly.
Since technically you can't actually do that and we're making it for the movies, what we've decided to do is called a cannon car. What happens is we have a vehicle that we decide to use. We build a safety cage in it, everything from 2-inch steel piping throughout it, like a race car cage for support for our driver for when the car turns over, it doesn't crunch him. We have everything from the battery removed, the airbags removed, we put in a fuel cell, we relocate the battery, and then we bring in Shane here from Vancouver, who installs our cannon into the car.
The air cannon is driven by nitrogen, which is an inert gas. It's not flammable. And what we do is plumb a 2-inch line from a reservoir down to a 4-inch diameter ram. That ram is 32 inches long. When the valve is hit, releases the pressure from the accumulator, pushes the ram out into the ground, which lifts the car up in the air. And there we are.
It's quite a ride. When the cannon goes off, it's surprisingly aggressive. There's quite a big noise, and it knocks the wind out of you for a sec as it jolts you up into the air. So it can be an aggressive ride.
How you feel, buddy?
And that's how you flip a car.
Hutch has hidden himself in the tool and die factory, a place where when he's attacked by this full Russian mob, he's set a bunch of explosives and booby traps to take them out.
Y tus trailers. Visita mi canal.
We're all very excited by the Home Alone-esque trap sequence. The tone of the film at this point has shifted. It has become more pop. It has become more colorful. It's more gratuitous, more fun. Because I kind of saw it, if you watch the film, you feel like you're eating a nice steak dinner, fries, and you're like, yeah, fries and steak. And now, here's a dessert. Now eat some sweet shit that's gonna rot your teeth, and it's not gonna be smart to eat it, but you're gonna have a great time. I told Greg, my pitch for it was, we gotta let the guys just go wild. There's obviously elements of danger and risk, but you know they're gonna just cut them. They're just gonna cut right through, because that's the finale. We want it to be fun. That's the key thing.
For the choreograph for the 3 different leads for the finale, it was important that we stayed true to exactly who the audiences know they are and who they are in the script. Hutch, we know, we've seen him through the movie. We've established the journey he's been on, so we stayed true to him and what he's going to do. Christopher Lloyd, he is an iconic gem as far as I'm concerned. And so I just think about what, if I was an audience member, what do I want to see when I see Christopher Lloyd? I want to see Christopher Lloyd kick ass. But I also know his capabilities, so I'm going to play to his strengths. And so we're going to make him awesome. And we get together with the producing team, the directing team, and we talk about, well, what does that mean? Does he need to be doing hand-to-hand choreography? Is that what's going to be memorable? Or should we make Christopher Lloyd's character the guy who's been around longer and is smarter? Should we make him the guy who makes smart decisions? So instead of having 1 gun and always reloading it, why not have 4 guns always loaded, strapped to yourself all over, and place traps all over and shoot them and put guys in position to make yourself smarter? So Christopher Lloyd, it wasn't a question of whether or not what he should be doing, it's how smart should we make him.
It was great that we could have RZA doing the whole way thing. Again, no stunt doubles, it's RZA. He knows a thing or two about the Shaolin way, or so I've heard. It's amazing to have people with that much experience, because you don't need to explain what you're doing. You kind of like, and he's like, oh, okay, great, go. And we're off. It was also about creating a style that fit to the movie, that respective fans would see the RZA do something that they've never seen him do before. He's done other movies where he's done kung fu styles and he's known for them. So we gave him stylistically smart choices because he is the sniper and he's worked with Hutch for many years. We wanted to show that he was versatile in his fighting styles through what he does. And not just that, we worked closely with our props department to do something fun where Harry assembles and disassembles his sniper rifle throughout the fight and uses it as a weapon to fight. So it shows that he's smart, but it also shows something fun and inventive that hasn't been seen before.
3, 2, 1, action!
And that's, part of the 8711's team is that they always find unique ways to incorporate the environment or whatever you're using as a weapon. I really have fun breaking down that sniper rifle and using it as a billy club.
I get to do some cool hand-to-hand combat there and gunplay too, especially in the lunchroom where I come swinging through and pulling that guy around and...
Action!
We had a little get-together, and the verdict is in. We, the jury, find this shot awesome.
That stuff's fun to do. Maybe it shouldn't be so much fun, but it is.
Pavel and I decided very early on that this is not going to be a film where we show off how great we are with the visuals. With this film, we decided, no, this is not about that. It's about a character, it's about a story. Let's put all our visionary things in the back pocket. It's okay. Let's tell the story. But we couldn't help ourselves because we said, 1 shot in the film will make it a little show-off shot. And that's when Bob throws the gun to RZA. And that's that grip to the gun as he flies and RZA catches and shoots the guy. That sequence was the family coming together was supposed to be this borderline cheesy, happy moment. I have a rule where I thought to myself, if I do action films, I'm gonna make sure that all my villains die in the most ridiculously grounded, somewhat believable in the context of the film way. So the Claymore that we had in the club makes a reappearance. Originally it was supposed to blow up in the car chase. And I thought, let's keep it and let's kill Yulian that way. We Dahlia on Alexei's face, the way it changes, it's very classic. It's kind of, you think of Die Hard, the Alan Rickman fall, which is one of my favorite endings to a villain ever.
I tape the Claymore mine to the bulletproof glass and approach him and pull the tripwire, and we both get thrown. Very imaginative, fun. I'm sure it would kill you. It would kill everybody in the room, but this is the movies. And I had that glass between me and the mine. Poor Yulian did not, and he was taken to shreds.
I mean, the fighting doesn't look like stock Hollywood stuff, it's got muscle, it's got life to it.
I know that it's a ridiculously over-the-top moment for a movie that starts off as restrained as we have, but that to me is just fun.